I have finally been released from college, and with all of this free time to do absolutely whatever I would like to do, I decided to do what any sane human being would do, and stay up 24 hours to paint 80 Clanrats. Since I had 80 models to paint, and I wanted to give myself the best shot of doing it in 24 hours I could, I decided that I'd build them before the 24-hour time period. Now, for the most part, this was quite easy, because they were the Island of Blood 2-piece models, but there were 20 of them that were the original box, so of course they had to be assembled. And then based.
3 down, 1 left to go.
I definitely couldn't have done all this and painted the army in 24 hours, so it's good that I've done all that now. But now we've got that earth texture down, I've got nothing left to do but to start painting. Well, the day had come, and unfortunately I found my workspace in squalor, but this was the last day I had to paint before Skaventide came out, so I donned the appropriate attire and got to cleaning. If I was actually going to have any chance of painting 80 Clanrats in 24 hours, I needed a good plan. I needed to keep the process short, with the cooler stages towards the end and the longer boring ones more towards the beginning, and also make it actually feasible in 24 hours. And this is what I came up with. I did leave a couple steps optional in case I ran out of time.
Well, everything's just about ready to go. I need to go prime these.
I decided to start off priming with brown because it would be a good base coat for a number of small and spread out areas on the model, mainly the fur and all of the wooden details. In addition to all of this, I also thought because if there's going to be any colour pointing through on a Clanrat, brown would sort of just look like dirt that would fit in anyway. So it seemed like all round the best choice of primer to go with. I used oak brown from the army painter, but you know, other browns are available.
Well, everyone's been primed and we're already down to 23 hours and 42 minutes. So I better get to painting.
The first sections of brush painting on the model were in Cadian flesh tone, where I was going to pick out all of the skin on these models, and at first I'd hoped that there actually wouldn't be that much, but it was gentlemen like this fella here, the ones that I think were originally intended to be Skaven slaves rather than Clanrats, just had way too much skin. This process dragged on and on.
I'm about halfway through painting the skin now. Still got all of these guys left to base coat the skin for, but we're about, 4 and a bit hours in. Probably actually remove an hour of that time just from like eating and priming. So we're on roughly an hour and a half per 20. So I think, we're still on pace because this is going to be by far the longest step.
While I'm doing all this, I'm being reasonably careful to try and avoid most of the furry and wood areas. But at this stage in the game you don't have to be particularly careful. All of the cloth, all of the metal work, that's all going to be painted over, go hand. I was by no means as slow as I was in that first clip when I'd been at it non-stop painting flesh for several hours. How many hours, you ask? Well, I'll let past me answer that question.
I am finally finished with the skin. It's only taken about 8 hours. I think we might still be able to do it. This skin is probably the longest stage by far. I mean, if you look at some of these guys, there's a lot of skin all over these models, and it's all spread about the place, and so painting each step of skin takes a little while. I'm very glad to finally not just be painting this colour. The sun has gone down, by the way, so I started quite late, but now we're on to the next stage. And that next stage was to paint in the cloth sections on these models. I do think of red, black and white as the sort of core Skaven colour scheme. It was the one in all of the sort of Island of Blood art, so that's the one I went with, because that's sort of what I'm trying to recreate. Red is the one I decided to start with, because frankly I'd been painting just sort of beige on brown for hours and hours, so I wanted some actual vibrant colour in there. At this point I'm trying to be a little bit more careful than I was in the previous steps. Now is not the time to try and go back and clean up any of the flesh areas, but also trying not to get too much paint on the base, because that brown texture is going to work quite well as some nice sort of ground texture later on. Again, more time saving. Another time check. I've painted half of them. Well, I'm painting roughly 2/3 of every squad red, so they've got a nice red, black, white separation, and to say this is a lot quicker is an understatement. It's only taken about an hour, but I am beginning to feel it a bit. You can see down in the bottom there, 1 o'clock in the morning.
And so I continued hammering out the red, model after model after model. And though I was getting tired, I actually wasn't getting bored yet. And my tiredness would hopefully go quite soon because, frankly, it being the summer, I only had a couple hours till the sun came up.
14 hours left. All the red is done. I think we're on to the white.
And so on we went to the white, using more or less all of the exact same techniques and doing the same stuff we were doing with the red as we will with the black. The white is incredibly bright at this stage, but don't worry because most of this will be darkened back down in the dipwashing stage, as we're relying on more or less all of our problems to be solved in the dipwashing stage. But really here, don't worry, I know it's bright, it will be sorted.
Would you look at that? Dawn!
We were now about 12 hours in and I've gone straight onto the black. The sun has now risen, it's about 4:30 in the morning. Yeah, I started this about 4:30 in the day. I slept in. The black had exactly the same process as all the other colours, though calling it black is a bit of a... well, it's not really black, it's just...
very, 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 very dark blue.
The idea here is that we can sort of cheat a bit of highlighting out of the dipwashing stage. It's black anyway, so black on black wouldn't do anything, so I might as well make it grey.
Okay, all of the black is done. Yeah, we're about 11 hours left. The sun is decidedly up. I'm gonna go make some toast.
Unfortunately, there was only one slice left. Though we are now well and truly on the home stretch. I went around now with Iron Warriors painting in all of the blades, metal on the shields, and armour all over these models. This step, they're all taking a while, but this was one of the quicker ones. Partially because a couple of these models just didn't have any armour on at all, and you could expect where there would be metal on these models. You can check the shield, check the knife, check the back. There's no metal there, there's no hidden areas of metal like there was with skin and cloth. And also, the sun was back up, my tiredness had abated, and I was just back in my groove having a good time painting models.
Back armour is by far the most important part of Skaven armour. Defends you when inevitably you run away, and in the few times that you're going forwards, it defends you from the guy behind you, who is probably also trying to stab you.
Okay, maybe I was still quite tired. But I decided that with the remarkable amount of time I had left, at this point about 8 or 9 hours, that I'd actually go a little bit beyond the plan that I'd initially set out. I decided to use Baneblade Brown to paint in the teeth, the spikes, and also some of the sort of bits of rope on the model. I quite liked it, but it was a very skippable step.
5 hours left. It's now 10 o'clock in the morning, and everyone is ready to be dip-washed.
The dip-washing stage was going to be messy, so I put out some newspaper and kitchen towel to avoid actually staining my desk too badly. The dip wash I'm using in this video is the DIY dip wash that Midwinter Minis shared his formula with in a YouTube video, which I will link in the description. It was... well, I'll show you how effective it was. I told you it was going to be messy though. Observe, perfectly normal base coated Clanrat, and for my next trick, I will dunk it in the solution, and out will come, with a little bit of wicking away with this brush, a perfectly washed model. Well, okay, perfect might be a bit excessive, but it has come out incredibly well for the amount of time that took. And this was the step that felt like it went the quickest. Now, I did have to resign myself to having very dirty fingers for quite a long time afterwards, but it really was great just seeing these, frankly quite boring models that I was a little bit worried about, very quickly become very cool looking. People are always calling streaking grime magic in a bottle, but for people like me who are a bit afraid of anything that's not acrylic paint, this is the closest I can get.
Everything is now just about dried, but I've lost a heck of a lot of time waiting for it to dry. I'm now just going to try and get through as much as I can in the remaining time. Predominantly going to be dry brushing. I think first I'm going to hit the base, and then the sort of 3 main black, white and reds, and then we'll deal with the banners. And if we've got even more time, maybe we'll do the eyes. But we'll probably just be on to basing by then.
But alas, the wash wasn't entirely dry, and so while I was trying to dry brush the bases, I realised that some of the sand was coming away, so the dry brushing of the bases had to be scrapped. But the wash was dry enough on all the flatter surfaces that I could easily dry brush the red, the white and the black areas of the model without much difficulty. And now I got to enjoy a sort of break from the batch painting. I decided with the time I had left, one of the best and most impactful things I could do with this time was to paint in the banners, and even after 20 hours solid painting, I still busted out a little bit of freehand.
Right, well the banners are done. Possibly not the greatest banners of all time, but they'll do for now. But in other news, less than an hour left. Is basing time alright?
I had thought I'd have loads of time left, but waiting for that Dipwash to dry had cut my time massively down. I now had 1 hour to do all of the basing, and so I just completely forgot the dry brushing step and just glued down some not statically applied static grass to the bases. And, you know, that was all looking great, but did I finish in time? Unfortunately, I didn't finish in time. Well, I more or less did, I just didn't paint the pages. They looked fine as they were almost completely dark brown. But if we're getting technical, the challenge was a failure. See you next time.